One of the biggest things that I've seen regarding Dispatch and some of the questions asked has been, why didn't Shroud just build another Astral Pulse? If he was the one who did it the first time, if he was the one who built it for Robbie, Robert's dad, why wouldn't Shroud just build another one and save himself the trouble, save himself the headache of trying to get it back from Mega Man, which is now the mantle taken by Robert, Robbie's son? And I've seen two answers for it mostly. The first one is that Shroud was just a narcissist piece of shit who wanted the Astral Pulse back. He just didn't want anyone else to have it, and he needed his Astral Pulse back that he built the first time. And he was just so driven by that he couldn't care about building another one. He just wanted that. But that theory or that line of thinking, I think, starts to fall apart a little bit as the story progresses. Towards the very end of Dispatch, you find out that Shroud has this big tentacle-like machine that he built. And he built some sort of Astral Pulse thing to power it. So he was able to build something similar to the Astral Pulse, but he didn't really build something strong enough to be the Astral Pulse. And then after the story continues a little bit more and you kind of defeat Shroud, he says that he wants the Astral Pulse so he can see fully into the future. Now, if you've been paying attention to Shroud, you know that he can kind of calculate, kind of figure out what someone's gonna do before they do it, almost like looking into the future. And that was something that I was kind of confused about. I wasn't sure if he could or could not actually see into the future. I didn't know if that was one of his powers, but he couldn't really see into it. He actually had to calculate probabilities and take a very educated guess about what someone was going to do. Now, how does he do that? How is that possible? If you look at the deluxe edition, you get some concept art and some backstory for some of these characters. It says here that Eli's helmet allows him to calculate probabilities and increase his odds of winning to unbeatable proportions, almost like he can see into the future. So he designed this helmet that allowed him to use maybe more of his brain or use his genius to detect the probability of somebody doing something. So that was how he was able to predict things. But he wouldn't have to do that anymore or use that anymore if he got his hands on the Astral Pulse, because the Astral Pulse would be able to power this helmet enough to actually see into the future. So if it was that important to him, I think he would have just built another one if he could build it. So him being so desperate and hungry to get his old Astral Pulse back kind of made me question if he actually built it all by himself. Now, we're not going to sit here and say that Shroud didn't build most of it. We're not going to pretend and say that Shroud wasn't smart enough to build most of it. But something that was hinted at throughout the story was that Eli, Shroud, and Robbie, Robert's dad, worked together. And then another theory started coming out, or other people started suggesting that maybe Eli couldn't build the Astral Pulse solely alone. He needed Robbie's help. Robbie wasn't an idiot. Whether Robbie was a dick or a bad father or all those things, that doesn't really matter here. What matters is that Robbie was also very smart himself. Maybe not genius level like Eli, but he was very smart too, and he probably had a lot to do with building the Astral Pulse. So I think that Eli and Robbie built the Astral Pulse together. And something that would maybe help this case is, again, if we go back to the Art Deluxe book, it reads on Eli's small biography. He worked closely with Robert's dad during Mecha Man's golden years, but was unable to buy into the vision of heroism being a worthwhile pursuit. So that tells us that they did work together for many years. And then if you look at the comics, they're seen working together on Mecha Man stuff. It seems like they spent time building things, and maybe Robbie was using Eli for that. He was using him for that reason, to increase his power, to make a better Mecha Man suit, make a more powerful Mecha Man suit. Now, we also have Chase telling Robbie, well, you already got the Astral Pulse from him. So maybe Eli built most of it, but again, Robbie had to have helped him in some way, and maybe Eli couldn't do it alone. So those are the two things. Either Eli was just a narcissist and didn't want no one else to have the Astral Pulse, and so he needed to get it back from Robert, or Eli couldn't build the Astral Pulse all by himself. He needed something that Robbie had, maybe a little bit of his intellect, maybe a little bit of his tech, maybe a little bit something. Robbie maybe provided something to Eli that Eli himself couldn't get, didn't have, or didn't know how to do, and that's why they built it together. So I think those are two of the biggest answers for this question. And so that's why I thought we tackled a little bit of it today. And we can look at this deluxe edition and get a little bit more information of Eli, a little bit more information on Shroud. And I love this little deluxe edition because it really tells you more behind the thinking of these characters and kind of reveals some story elements too. So what do you guys think? Do you think either of these two answers is the right one, or do you have a theory or answer of your own as to why Eli didn't just build another fucking Astral Pulse?